Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Melodramatic Bookworm family. Also, welcome to the next in my 2023 reading wrap-up video series, and this is one of my favorite videos to make, in which I recap my favorite books of the year past. And in today's video I'll be talking to you about 25 of my favorite books of 2023. This does not mean that all of these books were released in the last year. These are books that I read in 2023 and absolutely loved. This time I've decided to make this video a little different, in the sense that I have decided to put my usual suspects as honorary mentions, and I have not included them in the 25 books because there were about 51 books that were vying to be on this list. Like, at first glance I had 50 books that I absolutely loved, and I whittled it down to 25 plus the usual suspects. You see how 2023 has gone by. Even though it was such a blur, I did find so many favorite books, so many amazing books that I read. So first, let's get on with the usual suspects. Of course, you will know if you've been watching my videos and if you've been watching my vlogs what they will be. Many of these usual suspects have reading vlogs which I've done and posted, so if you'd like to go check those out, I'll leave them in the description box below. First on this list is In the Language of Remembering by Aanchal Malhotra. This is a non-fiction book in which Aanchal Malhotra talks to survivors of partition and their relatives, their next generations, to see how partition affected them. I was in tears by the end of it, and I know that I will go back and read it again. Just yesterday I was sitting down and flipping through it, but my heart couldn't take it, so I was like, okay, pause, we'll get back to it. These Are the Words by Nikita Gill. Nikita Gill, one of my favorites, had me homesick, had me remembering my mom, had me so nostalgic, and Nikita Gill always manages to do this. I don't know how, but she does. Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. I don't even have to say anything else. And then the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. I read all 5 books, I think across October, November and December, and I absolutely loved them. And as a consequence, Percy Jackson and the Chalice of the Gods, the 6th in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series by Rick Riordan. Happy Place by Emily Henry. I've come to love Emily Henry's writing, especially after Book Lovers, which I fell in love with. So Happy Place, in which it talks about two people who are not being that communicative and the problems that arise because of that. It was love. I mean, I didn't like it as much as I did Book Lovers. I don't think any of her other books can match up to it, but I really enjoyed it. And then The Burning God, the 3rd in the Poppy War series by R.F. Kuang, which left me like stunned. I was like, what just happened? And that's the effect R.F. Kuang's writing has, which is why the next 2 books are also by R.F. Kuang, usual suspects. See what she does? Suspects. And first is Babel, An Arcane History, and the second is Yellowface. Both of these you watch me lose my mind over. This for one reason, this for a completely different reason, and both I've like annotated and written and tabbed, and I don't know what else, man. But these 2, whoa, wow. So those were my usual suspects. Now on to the list of 25 books that I read across 2023 and absolutely loved. These books will be in chronological order of when I read them. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this reading wrap-up video, and let me share with you my favorite books of 2023. First up was The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. This was one of the first books that I read in 2023, and I have been about this book. I mean, I haven't been completely on the positive side, but hindsight, retrospect is a good thing. It helps us to see details about things that you wouldn't usually see. So this is a book about 4 mothers and 4 daughters and their relationship with each other. It's a story about mother-daughter relationships. It's a story about immigration and how the daughters' relationships with their mother changes. The mothers doing things that they think are right for their children, but then things happen, their relationship changes. These 4 mothers usually play mahjong, and at the table one seat is left empty when one of them dies. So her daughter is invited, and from there truths come tumbling out, relationships evolve, and we see both perspectives, both the daughter's perspectives as well as the mother's, and how the daughters being brought up in America are clinging to their Americanness, and they have their own ways of thinking, different ways of thinking, and how the mothers being Chinese and clinging to their traditions, how they do things to either keep their relationship with their daughters or to see their daughters go out into the world and be the strong independent women. Overall, we see the mother sacrifices, their pains, their backstories. Even if you don't like the book at the moment that you read it, months into the future, months after you finish reading the book, you will be sitting and thinking back on what it was all about. It will fill you with nostalgia, it will make you long for home, it will make you want to go back and change things, and it will give you a new perspective, and that is why this book is on my favorites of 2023 list. Next is Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adib Khurram, and this is a young adult coming of age book in which we follow Darius, who is not that in touch with his Persian traditions, but he's about to go to Iran for the first time ever to visit his ailing grandfather. And when he goes there, what he is confronted with, the love that emanates from his grandparents, the people, the customs, the traditions, everything sort of settle inside of him. He meets a boy called Sohrab, and he finds a best friend in him, a camaraderie, a companionship, and he spends his time playing football and watching the sunset and watching the sunrise, a whole lot of things. And when Sohrab calls him Darius, who was the first great ruler of Persia, something sort of clicks inside of him. So when they have to go back, now Darius, through all his depression and his anxiety, he has to find a way to be himself, because now he's found himself. Going back to his life in America makes it feel like maybe he's going to lose some of himself. So now he has to find a way to make that stick, and this is one of the most heartfelt, the most beautiful books I've ever read, written in simple language, but it does everything right in all the ways that matter, and I absolutely loved it. I was emotional by the end of it. I think I read this for a readathon that I was hosting, and by the end of it I was like in tears, and you know that any book that moves me to tears, it's going to go on my favorites list. Next is This Poison Heart, the first in the This Poison Heart duology by Karen Barron, and this is the story of Briseis, who has a gift. She can grow plants from seeds and all the like. She has a gift with plants. So when her aunt dies and leaves her a whole estate, she doesn't think much of it, but then her moms and her decide that maybe it would be for the best, because in the countryside she can either hone her gift or she can keep it in check or whatever. So they move over there, but the mansion they move into seems a little creepy. There's an apothecary over there, and the people come knocking on their door asking for this potion, that tincture, etc, etc. Now it's up to Briseis to find out what exactly is happening over here, because a lot rides on it, and a lot means a lot, including the lives of the people she is closest to, the people she loves the most in the world. And this is one of the most exciting books with Greek mythology I had ever read. I was not expecting this, and the way Greek mythology is imbibed into this is also very interesting, and it will keep you invested right from the start to the very end, because the writing is very simple. It's very beautiful in its simplicity. It will claw at parts of your mind, trying to bring out all the information that you know about Greek mythology and use it to deduct what is happening here. And I really enjoyed it. There was a different reason why I read this book, but I'm glad I did. Only I wish that the second book in this duology was as good, because that book was like, okay, second book syndrome. I think that book is called This Wicked Fate, and I wasn't a fan of that one. Next was Watership Down by Richard Adams. This is a classic book. You see everywhere on any list of classics. This will be one that will definitely be there, with good reason, because this is such a lovely story. It is not dumbed down for children, but children can read this and will learn so much from these pages. Oh my god, the language can be a bit tedious because it is descriptive, but in its descriptions of these rabbits who are looking to survive. This group of rabbits has escaped their burrow which was sort of becoming overrun with totalitarian authoritative animals. So they are on the run, they have escaped from there, and now they're looking for a safe place to create a burrow of their own. So what they encounter on the way, their interpersonal relationships, and oh my god, I didn't even think that you could do something with a concept like this and turn it into the masterpiece that it is. Because this is a masterpiece, this is a classic that is more empathetic, it is sweeter, and it is lovelier than so many classics for adults out there. And I can't say this enough. I love it. You've got to read it. And if you ever think that the descriptions are getting a little heavy, please keep patience, because the payoff is much better than anything you can ever imagine. The rabbits are something that keep going around my mind all the time. Like Hazel, Fiver, Bigwig, and all the rest. I don't think I can get them out of my mind without being like, see, I'm speechless, literally speechless. Next is Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay, and this is such a powerful book in which Roxane Gay talks to us about what it means to be a feminist and how it is better to be a bad feminist than to be no feminist at all, because society is hell-bent on demonizing us women for being women. And it just had my blood boiling, because Roxane Gay takes examples from popular media, pop culture, and she dissects them. She shows us how things have been shown to in the media for years and years and years together. She has a very no-nonsense approach when it comes to talking about these things. She doesn't mince her words, and she makes the most sensible points. She isn't like, this is cancelled, that is cancelled. I don't think she advocates cancel culture, but the whole point of what she's saying is that there will be media that do this, but just don't encourage them, don't give them the leeway, because that is wrong. You know that is wrong. And she makes all of these points. She asks us to ask ourselves what it is to be a feminist. She tells us, she implores us to understand the fact that there is no one single way of being a feminist. There are as many different ways of being a feminist as there are women, or as there are people, because intersectional feminism exists, and anybody who ignores that, and anybody who says that this way is the only way, by ignoring all the other offshoots, all the other tributaries that make up this river, that's wrong. And I love Roxane Gay for this. I have come to love her irreverent, no-nonsense, but very sensible approach to writing these things. Next was Dust Child by Yuen Fan Quay Mai. This is mostly a historical fiction novel, and in 1969-70 this follows one track in which we see an American soldier and a Vietnamese woman, they getting into a relationship, and then fast forward to 2016 in which an American son is trying to find his father in the hope that he will have a better life, and an American war veteran from the Vietnam War is now returning to Vietnam to confront his demons after he listens to his wife. Each of these tracks is equally immersive, because you want to know what were the decisions that were taken at each given point in these tracks. It keeps you invested. It makes you want to find out what happens to the characters. Do they find what they're looking for? Do they get some peace? Is there any connection between them? What exactly is happening? And what will their desperation, what will their despair make them do? Because when it comes to a war, there is no guarantee about what it will or won't make you do. And no matter how unlikable these characters are, as humans, as humanity, all we want is for humans to find peace, is for men and women to go to bed at night at peace, at having found family, at having found comfort. This was one of my most anticipated reads of 2023, and I loved it, although I didn't love it as much as The Mountain Sing. The Mountain Sing had a different level of sophistication, a different level of gorgeous writing. This one had it too, but somehow it just fell short of The Mountain Sing, although not enough to stop it from getting onto this list. Next is Pet by Akwege Emezi. This is a story of Jam, who meets Pet, who has come alive from one of Jam's mother's paintings after a drop of Jam's blood falls onto the canvas. Pet has come to hunt a monster, but that monster lives in Jam's best friend Redemption's house. But it's not easy to accept it because Jam and Redemption have been told all their lives that monsters no longer exist. And now what happens? How will Jam protect her best friend, and how will she uncover the truth forms this entire story. And the way this book makes a point, it is a very thin book, it's a novella, and the way it makes a point about monsters and the faces that they wear and how they look in society, it is one of the most brilliantly written, compelling books I have ever read. And it is obviously for that reason and more one of my favorite books of 2023. Love it. I love Akwaeke Emezi's writing. Pet is a book that has my whole heart. These sort of conversations need to be made, and for Akwaeke Emezi to be making them in their points, in their work, in their novellas, love them for it. Next is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this was, oh my god, such a fabulous book. This is the story of Carrie Soto, who is a retired tennis player, but when someone is about to break her record and take her champion of all time, best of all time title, she decides that it's time for a comeback. So she does whatever she has to do, and with the help of her father, she makes a return to the circuit. What happens, what are the lessons that she learns, and how her character builds changes, and what she learns along the way, and what we as readers learn along the way forms this entire story. And I gave a very bad gist when compared to what the book is actually about. And that is a book that has one of the strongest female characters ever. I love Carrie Soto to no end, and the way she takes life into her own hands and she takes decisions, she does what has to be done, and I love her for it. And it is not just that her character is being sugar-coated. We see her raw and bare from the beginning to the very end. Her decisions, be it bad decisions, be it decisions made out of spite, be it angry ones, but we also see her learning curve, how she learns, how she evolves. My god, this is a fabulous book. This is why Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my absolute favorite writers out there. I did a full video about talking about all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. I gushed about her. I read every single one of her books, and I'm all the better for it. If you'd like to go check that video out, link will be here as well as in the description box below. Next was Family of Liars by E. Lockhart. This is a prequel to Viva Liars, and you know I loved Viva Liars so much because there's so much intrigue, there's so much I wouldn't say secrecy, but there are layers to that story, something that you need to process a lot before you arrive at a destination. But this is the story of the Sinclair family, but it goes one generation back, how the parents of the generation from Viva Liars, they arrive at this private island, and what happens there, the people that they meet, the relationships that they get into, the things that they do for family and everything. It's just so bizarrely wonderful. The secrets that take birth during this time will follow these people around for ages to come. And even though this book can get a little whiny, when it culminates so spine-chillingly wonderful. You learn about family, you learn about what lengths one will go for family and the secrets one will keep. Brilliant writing and brilliant storytelling in the creepiest way possible. I mean, of course, I'm not talking creepiness in the way of Stephen King, but this is a real sort of creepiness. I love this book more than I loved Viva Liars, and that is saying something because Viva Liars was also fabulous. Speaking of creepiness, The Doll short stories by Daphne du Maurier. I love Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, and I thought it was very creepy, but it was very well written. And this is on a different level altogether because this is a collection of short stories. These are superbly written, short, succinct, and they will fill you with a sort of dread that what if this happened? Because you will not see that coming. It could be subtle, it could be like in your face, but it is still one of the most compelling short story collections I've ever read. And now I'm a huge fan of Daphne du Maurier. I want to read all of her works, but I'm also holding out because I'm like, if I finish reading all of her works, there won't be any more for me to get through. The bottom line is, if you're in the mood for something creepy, or if you're in the mood for something real to blow your mind and to send shivers down your spine, then this is one book, this is one short story collection that you should definitely read. Don't miss out on it. Next is a memoir by actor Constance Wu, and this is Making a Scene. And in this book, Constance Wu takes us through her life. In every chapter, she tells us, she starts off in a very underhanded manner. You don't understand halfway through what exactly is she talking about, what point is she going to make. But when she makes that point, she makes some of the best ever mind-triggering, mind-blowing points ever. Okay, maybe that was hyperbole, but my point is, she is talking about how it is to be an actor. She talks about family, relationships, friends, romance, sex, trauma, and her process of becoming an actor. What were her experiences on this way, on this path to becoming an actor? And it is one of the most well-rounded memoirs ever, because even though every chapter, like I've mentioned before, it starts off being a little vague. You don't know where she's going, and you have to like sit through at least half of it before you understand that bat is coming swinging at your face with the most intense point ever. And one of the best parts is the writing is brilliant, and the cherry on the cake is that the audiobook is on a next level altogether. You could find it to be a little childish at times because she is getting to that point. That's where I said that when the chapter starts off, etc., etc. But when it culminates, she gets to that point and she makes it. There is such a levity to her tone, such levity to her voice. She uses all her talent as an actor to put into this. And to be fair, when you're reading your own memoir as an audiobook, I think all those feelings come out, and Constance Wu was the best person to narrate this memoir, to be honest. Read Making a Scene by Constance Wu. Even better, listen to it on audiobook if you can. Next is In the Watchful City by S. Xiaowei Liu, and this is set in the city of Aura, which has a sort of surveillance system, and there is this extrasensory human, I think they are called, and A is responsible for keeping the city safe through surveillance and all, and A takes pride in it. But when a mysterious visitor arrives in the city with a band of stories along with them, with a cabinet full of stories, A's world sort of expands, and how I look through it forms this entire story. This is a story dealing with grief, trauma, oppression, love, and so much more. And this was my introduction to the bio-cyberpunk genre. At least I didn't know that this was the kind of story that belonged to the bio-cyberpunk genre. This is a small interconnected story where it goes off into different tangents, into different stories, but it is an ode to the art of storytelling, and it is a peep into what humanity is and what humanity can be. And I absolutely love this book. I wasn't expecting to love this as much as I did, but I'm glad I read it. I'm glad that it exists. Next is The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochran, and this is the story of Charlie, who is down on his luck technology whiz kid, and he joins a dating program much like The Bachelor in a bid to stay relevant. Dave is a producer on this show. Now Charlie doesn't believe in love, and now Dave, as a producer on the show, he has to get Charlie to connect with the contestants and get him around to the concept. But the thing is, Charlie and Dave hit it off more than Charlie hits it off with anybody else on the dating show. And what happens here and whose love story gets told in the end forms this entire story. And I'm just so glad that I read this book because it's so sweet, it's so full of emotions, it will like hit you out of nowhere. I'm more invested in the lives of these reality stars. I'm more invested in Charlie and Dave than I am in my own life, and I'm like, fine, I'm here for it. I'm a reader. I should be used to it by now, but this makes it bloom in an entirely different way, and I absolutely loved it. Next was Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto, and this is the story of Vera Wong, and she is a Chinese lady who has very specific opinions. She is very set in her ways. She believes that young people should wake up even before the crack of dawn so that they can get things done. Otherwise, they are of no use. Vera has a tea house called Vera Wang's world famous tea house, and she lives above it. But one day when she comes down in the morning to open it to get everything ready for the day, she gets the shock of her life to find a dead body lying in the middle of a tea house. So she does what she thinks should be done. She draws a line around the body and she goes on this whole quest to find out what is happening. She wants to help the police because she has seen a lot of TV shows where they tell you how to solve a murder case. And now Vera thinks that she will be able to solve the murder. What exactly happens and how she goes about doing this, will the police be able to handle her involvement in this case, forms this entire story. And Vera is this typical colony auntie kind of figure in which she has an opinion about everything. Sometimes you just want to shake her till her teeth rattle and tell her ki shh, 2 minutes, shush. But the writing is so witty, it is so funny, and all you want to do is, okay, Vera, you continue doing whatever it is you are doing because it is entertaining as hell. How Vera forms relationships with the suspects on the case, how the police go about trying to solve this case with Vera hot on their trail, is what this book is about. And it is one of the most entertaining books I read in 2023, and I absolutely loved it. Vera is irritating, but she is also one of the most endearing characters, and by the end of the book you are like, you keep effing up, Vera. Yeah, what is this? I just want to give her a big hug at the end of it all. What is it about tiny aunties that make you feel like that? It's entertaining, it's brilliant, it's witty, it's funny, it's laugh out loud. There's a murder mystery in there. There's building relationships, and so much more. Read it. Read it. Next was Beyond the Gender Binary by Alok Ved Menon. This is a short chapbook kind of book in which Alok Ved Menon talks about the gender binary and how society has drilled it into our brains that the gender binary is what is right and everything else is wrong. And they talk about how going beyond the gender binary, as the title suggests, is what will be good for everybody. Because as humans, society limits us to what we can be, to what we can feel, and to explore what lies beyond that gender binary, to explore our full potential, will be what is best for us as human beings. Alok Ved Menon explains it all. They tell us in just short and sweet sentences and words and paragraphs that look, being human doesn't mean being limited. If you've seen their videos, if you've seen their reels, if you've seen their stories, you'll know that they are one of the most courteous people on the planet, and they explain how breaking that limit can unleash the potential that lies within us humans. And this is like, next was The Vitals by Tracy Sorensen, and this is Tracy Sorensen's memoir in which she talks about her experience with peritoneal cancer. And this is not told from Tracy's perspective, it is told from her organ's perspective. We see a character that is her womb, we see characters that are tumors, and we see characters like the liver, the spleen, the stomach, the brain interacting with each other, the tumors coming into existence, growing. And the way this memoir has been written, it is so groundbreaking, it feels like, because it feels like there are a lot of genres embedded into this one book. There is a mystery about what is going to happen, like what is happening behind the scenes, nobody knows. There is a thriller because you know that if this is not going to happen in time, things are going to get worse. And there is a love story that's going on. It's a weird love story, but there is a love story that's going on, and a culmination of so many other genres. It is riveting. It is also sad because this is a memoir, and Tracy Sorensen had been battling all of this, and to turn such an experience into something like this, it is simply mind-blowing. And Tracy Sorensen had a relapse, I think a few months ago, just before I read this book, and to have that kind of strength to be able to look at cancer, peritoneal cancer like this, and think that, okay, I want to tell my story, but how am I going to make it into a mind-blowing one? And this is how Tracy Sorensen does it. Fabulous. This is one book that I will always recommend whenever you ask me for a memoir recommendation. Next was Find Him Where You Left Him Dead by Kristen Simmons. This is the first in the trilogy, and oh my god, this is one of the most creepiest, chilling books I've read. This is the story of 4 friends. Technically there were 5, but that 5th friend died, and over the 4 years that he's been dead, these 4 friends have scattered. They are no longer in touch with each other, etc. They're doing their own thing. So when they are at their own places doing their own stuff, they sort of get premonitions. They feel like that 5th friend, whose name is Ian, his ghost is following them, and he is calling them back to go to that cave where he died, because they were together when he died and they were playing a game, and he is asking all of them to go back and find him. So these 4 go back to that cave, and they are dropped into a sort of a hellscape, a game it's called, and this game demands that they have to complete a few challenges before some particular time ends if they want to escape from that world. Otherwise they will be stuck there forever. And this is like a Jumanji-esque sort of game, but only much creepier, much chillier. And I think this is based on Japanese folklore, and to bring all of these elements together, I think the author has done a fantastic job. I did the wrong thing by reading this at like 2 a.m. because reading this meant that I was constantly looking over my shoulder, thinking that, oh, that shadow that the fridge is casting, no, that's not a shadow, that's someone standing over there. So it will give you that trip. So if you are someone who likes reading books like this, who likes getting that thrill, then this is one book that you should definitely pick up. Book 2 is coming soon. I don't know when it is coming, but it is coming soon, and I cannot wait to read it. It is, I can't believe I'm saying that this is something that I want to read, that I want to creep myself out even more, but it's so well written, I can't help it. Next is another memoir. Okay, this was the year of me loving memoirs, and especially sad ones at that. This is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner, and this is Michelle Zauner's memoir in which she talks about her relationship with her mom and about how her mom passed away of cancer. And she goes back to her childhood, and she goes on a flashback of sorts, examining her relationship with her mother and how it has shifted and changed over time. Like, it broke my heart. I wouldn't say that I wasn't expecting it to, but I was like very cautious when I started reading it, and in the first few pages I was like, oh, I want my mom. It was that poignant. It was that brilliant. She also talks about what it means to be a carer for a cancer patient and what all goes into it, what all you have to think about while caring for a cancer patient, and how your behavior will affect the patient, because in that moment there's nothing more important. And the way she talks about all of this, it just left me hollow from within. And it left me thinking things that I really don't want to be thinking. And I say that in the most honest way possible, because if a book is making you think like that, then that is a good book, because literature is supposed to make you think. It is supposed to make you examine your own feelings. It's supposed to make you examine your own thoughts, your relationships, everything, the whole thing. And Crying in H Mart did exactly that. I'm so sorry for Michelle Zauner. When I close my eyes and think, it just breaks my heart, this book, the very thought of it. And you say memoir, this is another book that comes to mind that I will recommend. Next is The Museum of Failures by Thriti Umbrigar. You're not surprised, I hope, to see this book on this list, because I've been gushing about this book for what feels like way too long. This was one of my rare 5 stars of 2023, and this is the story of Remy Wadia, who has now settled in the US. He has married there, but he is now in Mumbai to adopt a child. And while he's here, he decides to visit his mother, with whom he doesn't have a great relationship, but he decides to visit her anyway out of sense of duty. But when he goes home, he realizes that she is not well, and she is now in the hospital and she cannot speak. So out of a sense of duty, he decides to stay back and take care of her until she recovers, and then he will go back to his life in America. But one day a photograph comes tumbling out of the cupboards, and it changes everything that Remy has ever known about his life. And how this happens, how these truths hit him across the head, and how there are so many secrets that you will never know are waiting in the wings. The things we do for the people we love the most, and the secrets we keep to make sure that someone we love is safe, to make sure that they are not affected by things that are happening. It takes some time for this book to set up the premise, to set up the foundation, but once it does, it's like knock after knock after knock on your heart, and it will just break you like it broke me. I was like, oh my god, this means something completely different, because context matters. When you put things in context, their meaning completely changes. And this is a book that has tons of it. The first half of the book goes excruciatingly slowly, but that is the thing about Thrity Umriga's writing. She has this way of making a point and then building upon it and coming to the most exquisite conclusion ever. It is a story of love, loss, forgiveness, family, faith, and so much more. And if I haven't convinced you yet, let this be your sign to go and read Thrity Umriga's books. Please go read The Museum of Failures. If not anything else, let this be the book that you start Thrity Umriga's writing with. So my camera's battery died and everything is out of whack right now. So I'm just hoping that the angle is similar. Okay. Next of my favorites was Imogen, obviously, by Becky Albertalli. This is one of my absolute favorites. This is the story of Imogen, who is a fierce ally. She is heterosexual and she's an ally, and one weekend she goes to visit her best friend Lily at college, and there she meets Lily's group of queer friends, and there Lily has told them that she and Imogen used to date, and since Lily has told them that, they are under the impression that Imogen is queer. But things are not that simple, are they? Because the more Imogen spends time with Lily's friends, especially Tessa, the more she starts to question her own self. She questions her own identity, her own sexuality, and what realizations that she comes through forms the entire story. And this is one of the most easiest books to read, but also one of the most hard-hitting books, because this is a story that questions what queer spaces should be, and who is entitled to comment on queer spaces, who is entitled to be in queer spaces, and how queer baiting and forcing someone out of the closet, how all of this works. Because there are a couple of characters who can be real pain in the bums because they gatekeep everything. Imogen is fictional, but it also shows how Becky Albertalli's own story panned out on social media, and it was heartbreaking because nobody should be forced to come out of the closet. And this is one book that everyone should definitely read, because as much as explanations should not be demanded, this is a discourse, this is an explanation of how it is as queer people in this world. I think I love this book more than I love Simon vs. the Homo sapiens Agenda. Next was Minor Detail by Adania Shibli. This is a short book told in two timelines. I think it's based on real events. In the first timeline, we see in 1949 the Israeli army gang rape and murder a young Arab woman, and 25 years later a young Palestinian woman, she comes to know that this happened on the day that she was born. So she goes back and tries to find out what exactly happened. She decides to go to that place and she decides to see for herself, but history sort of repeats. So what exactly all this means is what this whole book is about. It is a stark reflection of reality of the lives of Palestinian people, and about how they have to live under occupation, under settler occupation, the things that they have to go through, the genocide that's been taking place on an everyday basis, the atrocities being done to them, and so much more is packed into this small novella. And it is one of the most heartrending books ever, because the author manages to not only write this in a stark, detached manner, but she, in the same vein, in the same breath, she manages to pack so much meaning into it, so much emotion into it, because through that distance, through that detachment comes a lot of truth hurtling back at you. So as way of recommending you one of my favorite books of the year, if there is one book that you read this year in 2024, let it be Minor Detail by Adania Shibli. Next was an unexpected favorite because a previous book by this author I did not like that much. I gave it 2 stars, I think. And that book was Shuggy Bane, and this current favorite is Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. And this is about young Mungo who lives in Glasgow with his mom and his sister, and his brother comes and goes because he now has his own family. In this part of Glasgow, in this part of Scotland, people have their own ideas about what it is to be a man and what it is to be a provider for the family and all. So when Mungo starts a friendship with a boy called James from the neighborhood, people start talking. That reaches his mother, who is one of the most detestable characters I've ever read about, but she hears of all of this and she decides to send Mungo away with 2 men on a fishing trip for the weekend in order to make a man out of him and all. What happens over there and how his growing relationship with James develops, or is it nipped in the bud? What exactly happens over there, and how his relationship with his sister, with his brother, all of this, how it develops, forms this entire story. And let me tell you this, Mungo's mother is one of my most hated characters of all time. I mean, not as much as I hate June Hayward, obviously, but she is just a selfish prick. And yes, this was all sorts of heartbreaking. It was all sorts of thought-provoking about what it means to be a queer person in this world. And this is set in the early 90s and it's a reflection of reality, but it is still so hard-hitting. You just want to crush anybody who looks at Mungo wrong, because that Mungo boy is precious. Okay, he is kind, he is sweet, and all he wants is to be happy, and yet the world is hell-bent on doing stuff. And when it forces his hand, what will happen? Like, do you ever think about that kind of thing? And I wasn't expecting to like this book so much that it actually came onto my favorites list, but it was just one of the most gut-wrenching books I've ever read. But there's also like a sort of vindication that comes with these pages. On some stark reason, I cannot tell you what exactly it is, why exactly that is, but it is there. So this is one that you should definitely read, but keep in mind the trigger warnings, because there's domestic violence, there's alcoholism, there's rape, there's sexual abuse, and a lot more. Please check the trigger warnings before you read this book. My next favorite was another rare 5-star of 2023, and that was Ace by Angela Chen. This is a non-fiction book about asexuality, and Angela Chen explains asexuality and everything surrounding it, the myths surrounding it, what the truths about it, and she uses examples and interviews to help us better understand asexuality. There's been years and years of research that's gone into this book, and it is very evident. It is a little too academic sounding, and it will take you like 2 or 3 tries sometimes to get through the sentences to understand them fully. But in my opinion, if you are giving this book a go, I feel like all of that is going to be completely worth it. Angela Chen talks about matronormativity, about heteronormativity. She talks about how asexuality is not just one thing. It can be experienced in multiple different ways by multiple different peoples. There are as many ways of being asexual as they are of being human. It's not just that they are just compelling points, they are that it is the truth. It is how humanity should work and not be limited to just one thing. The main point that she makes is that if society becomes inclusive of asexuality, then it automatically means that it is inclusive of everyone, and that is what we should be striving for. And by the end of this book, there were so many feelings I was having. I know that I'm going to go back and read it again because I do want to, and it's just that important in my opinion. Please do give this book a go and be patient while you read it, because it requires patience, but the payoff will be completely worth it. My next favorite was Mr. Einstein's Secretary by Matthew Riley. This was my first Matthew Riley, and oh, what a book this was. This is a historical fiction / thriller, and it follows Hannah Fisher, who is born in the early 1900s, and she and her family are neighbors of Albert Einstein and his wife. In 10, I think, Hannah's mother is killed in a terrorist attack, and in 1919 her father follows after he helped with the Treaty of Versailles. And because the situation is so dire, they live in Germany and the situation is so dire, Einstein helps her escape to America, where she joins a secretarial school. She graduates from there. She becomes a secretary to a big industrialist. How she becomes efficient as a secretary, how then she becomes Einstein's secretary, and then she ends up going to Germany and she gets stranded there, and as a way of survival she takes up this job where she is a secretary to Albert Speer, who is the head architect to Adolf Hitler. And what she sees from behind the lines and what she does through all of this, what her life entails, forms this entire story. And it is one of the best thrillers, best historical fictions I've ever read. The short chapters, the snappy pace, it is just brilliant. I didn't want to keep the book down. It was that good. I know that I will be reading Matthew Riley's books in the future because his writing is that easy, that flowing, and I've said the same thing so many times that it feels like deja vu right now. But this book, and last but not the least, is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is the story of Viv, who is an orc mercenary, and she has had enough of the bloody life. She wants to give it up. She wants a peaceful life. So she goes to Thune, where she has brought all her savings that she has gathered over the years, and she acquires a livery where she intends to open a cafe. So how she collects the required material, how she hires people, how there's a found family of sorts that is happening here, and the way the cafe blooms, the people who come there, and what exactly is happening when adventure threatens to knock on her door again. What does she do? Will she be able to stave that danger off? Forms this entire story, and this is just so warm, so wonderful, like coffee and chocolate and baked stuff and chocolate pastries and whatnot. I mean, I don't even know how this is supposed to look like, but I have an idea, and every time I think Legends and Lattes, my mind goes to that place, and I just love this book. This is one of the warmest, one of the coziest books, fantasy books I've ever read, and I'm so glad to have read it. It just makes me want to have hot chocolate. That is why this became one of my favorite books of 2023. And if you are looking for something like this, fantasy but warm and cozy, like I think cozy fantasy has become a thing now, and if you're looking for something like that, this should be one that you definitely pick up. And especially if you are a coffee lover, if you are a chocolate lover, read this book and you'll just feel the best of things, coffee and chocolate related. And that cover should tell you all there is to it. Color, coffee, chocolate. So those, plus the ebooks that I was talking to you about, were my favorite books of 2023. Which of these have you read? Which ones do you want to read? Which books did you read in 2023? Which were your absolute favorites? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.